In the quiet shadows of a small American town in the early 1990s, a story unfolded, one that shocked America and left behind a trail of questions no courtroom could fully answer. Hello, and welcome to Caseborn. In this video, you're going to hear the story of a teenage boy who was manipulated by his teacher into helping her plan a deadly act against her husband. It's a real case. Today, you'll hear this story told from the perspective of the boy himself, the one she emotionally controlled, influenced, and pushed toward the unthinkable. It's a disturbing look at how trust can be violated, how power can corrupt, and how a single moment can change the course of a life forever. This is My Teacher Tried to Murder Me. At 15, I was barely holding myself together. A kid lost in the quiet corners of Barre, New Hampshire. Just another face wandering school halls, invisible and unheard. My home wasn't a place of comfort. My father worked long shifts, tired and distant, and my mother struggled to keep everything afloat. The silence between us was thick, filled with things left unsaid. I often felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down into a void I didn't understand. I wasn't the class clown or the star athlete. I was the kid who sat in the back, who rarely spoke, who always felt a step behind. School was no refuge either. My few friends didn't know the battles I fought inside, the fears, the loneliness, the constant craving to be seen. And then came Pamela Smart. She was different. Young, confident, the kind of teacher who didn't just read from textbooks, but seemed to see right through you. She asked questions I never thought to answer. She listened like my thoughts mattered. For the first time, someone made me feel like I wasn't invisible. It was like she pulled me out of the shadows and into a spotlight that was both warm and blinding. But that spotlight was a trap. Slowly, the attention turned into control. Her words wrapped around me like a net, soft, persuasive, and inescapable. I didn't know it then, but I was falling deeper into a web of manipulation I couldn't see. I was just a boy, desperate to be needed, desperate to matter. And she knew exactly how to use that. Looking back, I see the cracks in my armor, how fragile I really was. The lonely nights, the silences filled with doubt, the way I started to believe her, even when my gut told me something was wrong. This was the beginning of a descent that would change everything. Years later, I still feel the weight of that moment when the headlights swung into our Derry, New Hampshire driveway. I was crouched in the bushes, gripping the .22 rifle she'd given me. The engine cut, and I watched as Greg Smart stepped out of his car, unaware that he was walking into a trap. He took 2 steps toward the front door, then hesitated as if he could sense something was off. I remember how the night air tasted, cold and metallic, and I watched as his silhouette trembled under the porch light. Then I heard the shot. Just one. I felt the air whoosh past my ear. He went down on his knees begging before the world went silent. I don't remember much after that. There was a struggle, a fight, the sound of her voice, his blood on my hands and on the floor. When they found him, he was lying in the hallway, a single bullet through his head. The room was in shambles, drawers emptied, clothes strewn about, overturned furniture. It looked like a burglary gone wrong, a random, tragic killing. What no one knew in those first frantic hours was that nothing about this was random. Everything had been planned. I was only 15 when I became her instrument, a pawn in her twisted game. I was just a kid when my life shattered, and I've been running ever since. Running from the past, from the darkness that still haunts my dreams. But no matter how far I run, I can't outrun the truth. The truth is that night, I took a life. And even now, almost 30 years later, I can still feel the weight of that moment in the darkness, the taste of that cold metallic air, the tremor of his fear in the light, the pleading in his eyes, the betrayal in my own hands. Pamela wasn't just a teacher. She was a master of influence. She knew exactly how to make me feel special, like I was the only person who truly understood her. Our conversations changed no longer about schoolwork, but about her life, her struggles, her dreams. She shared secrets she told no one else, making me feel like I was part of something forbidden, something powerful. It started small compliments on my intelligence, my loyalty, how she could trust me in ways no one else could. But beneath those words was a calculated plan, a slow tightening of control that I didn't recognize. She planted ideas in my mind, questions about her husband, about how unhappy she was, about how nobody cared for her like I did. Each word was a thread, weaving a tapestry of doubt and loyalty, confusion and devotion. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to be the hero in her story. But what I didn't see was how I was becoming a pawn in a game I didn't understand. The more I gave, the more she demanded my time, my secrecy, my obedience. I stopped talking to friends who questioned her. I stopped trusting my own thoughts. It was a slow unraveling of who I was, replaced by someone I barely recognized, someone desperate to prove his worth by any means necessary. Looking back, I can see the signs, the manipulation tactics, the grooming, the emotional blackmail. But at the time, all I felt was that I was the only one who mattered to her. And that feeling was the most dangerous of all. The turning point was subtle, almost invisible to an outsider. It began with small remarks, casual words that hid a world of meaning beneath them. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I sat with Pamela in her car, the dim glow of the dashboard lights casting shadows on her face. She spoke softly, but her words carried a weight I couldn't ignore. "You're the only one who truly understands me," she said. "If he wasn't here, maybe we could finally be happy." That sentence lingered in my mind, haunting me with its quiet urgency. It was not a direct request, but the implication was clear. Inside me, confusion battled with a desperate hope to believe that I was helping someone I cared for. I was trapped between loyalty and fear, unsure of where one ended and the other began. This internal struggle grew as days passed. Each conversation with her pulled me deeper into a maze of doubt and devotion. I stopped listening to the voices that warned me from outside friends, family, my own conscience. I was losing myself, piece by piece. As the days turned into weeks, the world I once knew began to crumble around me. The laughter of friends, the voices of my family, the routines of school, all of it faded into a distant hum I could no longer hear. I stopped answering calls. I ignored texts. Every attempt to reach me felt like a pull from another life one that seemed less real than the one Pamela had woven around me. At school, I was a ghost. I drifted through halls with my head down, avoiding the eyes of those who once called me friend. Their faces blurred as I sunk deeper into silence and isolation. Pamela's presence grew stronger with each passing day. She was the only constant, the only person whose voice still held meaning. Her words became my truth. "You're special," she told me repeatedly. "You're the only one who understands me." Those words echoed inside my mind, filling the spaces left empty by the absence of others. Then came the rifle, the cold steel object that would change everything. I didn't ask where it came from. Pamela said it was for protection, to keep us safe, and I believed her. But even as I clutched the gun, a chill ran down my spine. It wasn't just a weapon. It was a symbol of the path I was forced down, a path from which there was no return. I remember the night I hid it beneath my bed, the weight of the rifle pressing against my chest as I lay awake, heart pounding with fear and a strange sense of purpose. Every moment with that gun brought a mix of emotions, terror, confusion, loyalty, and a desperate hope that I was doing the right thing. My mind became a battlefield, torn between the innocence I'd lost and the dark reality I was now part of. The world outside my room faded further. I was trapped inside a web of control and deceit, caught between the girl I trusted and the act I was about to commit. Holding that rifle, I felt the weight of every choice, every lie, every broken promise. And in that silence, I knew I was no longer just a boy. I was a weapon in a game I didn't fully understand. The aftermath of that night was unlike anything I could have imagined. The silence that followed the shot was soon broken, not by guilt alone, but by the relentless approach of truth. The police investigation was swift and thorough. They found evidence that led them closer and closer to the tangled web of lies we had spun. What turned the tide was something none of us expected: recordings. Hidden tapes of Pamela's own voice, captured by investigators, revealed her manipulation with chilling clarity. Listening to those tapes, hearing her coax me, instruct me, and weave her control over my young mind was like reliving a nightmare. The media frenzy that followed was intense. Pamela Smart, once a respected teacher, was exposed as a master manipulator who had betrayed not only her husband, but the very trust placed in her by the community. Public opinion was ruthless. The headlines screamed betrayal and horror, turning a private tragedy into a national scandal. For me, the realization of what I had done and why hit like a tidal wave. I wasn't just a participant, I was a victim too. Caught in a web I didn't fully understand at the time. The weight of remorse crushed me. Every memory, every whispered promise, every dark moment of that night replayed endlessly in my mind. But I was not alone in facing the consequences. Some of my closest friends, who had helped cover up the crime-hiding evidence, maintaining silence, were brought into the light. Their roles, though different from mine, were not forgotten by the law. The courtroom became a stage where truth and lies clashed. Testimonies peeled back the layers of deception, revealing the complex dynamics of manipulation, loyalty, and betrayal. Pamela was convicted, her sentence a reflection of the severity of her crimes. For those of us caught in her orbit, life was forever changed. The loss of innocence was permanent, the scars invisible but deep. This story is a stark reminder of how power and trust can be weaponized against the most vulnerable. It urges us to recognize the signs, to protect those who may be silently suffering, and to never underestimate the impact of manipulation. As I look back, I see a boy trapped in a nightmare, controlled by a woman whose influence turned his world upside down. But I also see a lesson one that must be told, remembered, and learned from. Because sometimes the darkest stories come not from monsters lurking in the shadows, but from those we are taught to trust. I was 15, and at 15, you think you understand the world. You think love is real, loyalty is everything, and that the pain you feel must mean something. But I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know that love could be used as a tool, that trust could be sharpened like a blade, and that sometimes the people who say they care about you are the ones who end up doing the most damage. I didn't wake up one day and decide to kill a man. It wasn't rage. It wasn't hate. It was slow, quiet. It was words whispered in dark corners. No one understands me like you do. We could be together, if only. When you're that age, you don't always know where your feelings end and someone else's begin. I wasn't trying to hurt anyone. I thought I was helping. I thought I was saving someone who needed me. But what I didn't understand, what I couldn't see, was that I was being used. And by the time I realized it, it was too late. I had crossed a line I could never uncross. And even now, as an adult, I still live with the question: who would I have become if none of this had happened? That boy didn't just kill a man. He lost himself. People hear the word manipulation and think of something obvious, aggressive, loud, direct. But real manipulation doesn't look like that. Real manipulation is soft. It's quiet. It slips through your thoughts like water through your hands. Pamela Smart didn't yell. She didn't threaten. She smiled. She listened. She told me I mattered. She made me feel seen. And That's the scariest part. She didn't force me. She made me believe I wanted to do it, that it was my choice, that we were partners, that we were in love. But love doesn't isolate. Love doesn't give you a gun. Love doesn't ask a child to kill. What she did wasn't just immoral. It was methodical. She took everything that makes a teenager vulnerable: confusion, hormones, insecurity, a hunger to be loved, and she turned it into a weapon. A teacher holds power, not just over grades and lessons, but over the way young people see themselves. And when that power is abused, it doesn't just break trust. It breaks minds. I look back now, and I see it clearly. But back then, I thought I was in control. And that's how manipulation works. You never see it until it's too late. There are lessons in this story that don't fit neatly into headlines or court transcripts. They live in the margins, in the uncomfortable spaces we'd rather ignore. We teach children how to spot danger in the street, but we rarely prepare them for the dangers that wear a smile, or speak softly, or come wrapped in admiration. We expect teenagers to make responsible choices, yet we underestimate how easily those choices can be shaped by someone they trust, someone older, someone with authority. We focus on the outcome, on what was done, but we rarely ask what conditions made it possible, what went unseen, what wasn't said. This story didn't begin with a crime. It began with attention, with a slow shift in boundaries that no one questioned until it was too late. That's where the real danger lies, not in the final act, but in the moments no one thinks to intervene. So what should we take from this? That prevention doesn't start in courtrooms. It starts in conversations. In classrooms where respect isn't just expected, it's defined. In families where power and affection don't get tangled. In communities that know how to listen, even when the words aren't clear. Because by the time the story is obvious, it's already too far along. If we want fewer endings like this one, we need to pay closer attention to how the stories begin. I don't share this story to seek absolution or sympathy. I share it because silence only deepens wounds. This isn't a tale of heroes or villains, just people caught in circumstances bigger than themselves, making decisions with consequences they couldn't fully grasp. We all live with choices made in shadows, and the echoes they leave behind. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about learning to carry it without letting it define you. The cracks remain, but so does the possibility to rebuild. And sometimes that's all any of us can hope for. Because the hardest battles aren't always fought with fists or guns. They're fought within, in silence, in regret, and in the search for understanding. This story is mine, but the lessons are ours. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If you're still here, it means something in this case resonated with you, and that means a lot to me. Let me know in the comments. Where in the world are you watching from right now? Are you in the US, maybe somewhere quiet in the Midwest? Are you in London, where it might already be getting dark? Are you in South Africa, where the night could be just beginning? Or maybe you're in Brazil, Tokyo, or Canada, listening as the world outside your window moves at a completely different rhythm. Whatever time it is where you are, I hope this story made you reflect. Tell me what you felt, what surprised you, or what questions stayed with you. Because here on Caseborn, you're not just watching a story. You're part of something that goes deeper, a place where we take the time to understand, to feel, to question. I read every comment, seriously, every single one. And if you're new here, welcome. This is just the beginning. Take care of yourself. And I'll see you in the next story.